July 13th, 1944. 0247 hours. RAF Woodbridge, England. The Junkers Ju-88G1 comes in low over the Suffolk coast, navigation lights blazing. Inside the cockpit, the pilot squints at the airfield below. The landing beacon pulses exactly as briefed. The runway lights form perfect parallel lines in the darkness. He begins his approach. The landing is smooth, professional. The pilot taxis toward what he assumes is his dispersal area. Then he sees them. RAF ground crew running toward the aircraft. Not German uniforms, British. In the rear cockpit, the radio operator realizes the mistake first. They've followed the wrong beacon. They've landed in England. He reaches for the destruction switch, the one that will blow up the radar equipment. Too late. British airmen swarm the aircraft. Rifles pointed, hands up, out, now. Within minutes, RAF intelligence officers arrive. They ignore the crew. They want what's in the nose, the Lichtenstein SN2 radar. 8-dipole Hirschgeweih antenna array. The system that's been killing RAF bombers for months. The weapon that gave German night fighters their edge back after Window rendered the earlier radars useless. And in the tail, Flensburg, the passive receiver that homes in on British Monica tail warning radars, turning defensive systems into homing beacons. An intelligence officer climbs into the cockpit, stares at the equipment, runs his hand over the display screens. "Bag everything," he says. "Every component, every wire, every manual." The German crew stands under guard, watching their aircraft being systematically stripped. The pilot's face is ashen. He knows what he's done. He's just handed the Allies the blueprint for the most advanced night fighter system in the world. This is the moment German night fighter dominance ends. But 7,000 miles away, in laboratories and factories across America, another radar system is entering production. One that will make night itself irrelevant. The Germans perfected hunting in darkness. The Americans are about to perfect bombing through it. August 9th, 1941. 47 hours. Somewhere over the Netherlands. Oberleutnant Ludwig Becker peers into the green glow of his radar display. 2 cathode ray tubes mounted in front of him show flickering blips. The left tube displays azimuth. The right shows elevation. His radio operator, Joseph Staub, sits behind him, calling out ranges. 3,000 meters, bearing steady. Becker flies the Dornier Du 215B5 with one hand. With the other, he adjusts the radar controls. The blips sharpen, converge. 2,000 meters. Becker can't see anything through the canopy. It's pitch black. Cloud cover at 3,000 feet. No moon, no searchlights, just the radar. The Fuji 202 Lichtenstein BC system, 32 dipoles projecting from the nose in a matratze array. Ugly as hell, costs the aircraft 50 kilometers per hour in speed from drag, but it works. 1,000 meters, target not maneuvering. Becker eases the throttles forward, closes the gap. At 400 meters, he switches to visual. Nothing. 300 meters, still nothing. 200 meters, there. A shadow against the clouds, the dark silhouette of a Wellington bomber. Becker positions himself below and behind. The Wellington's blind spot. His finger moves to the trigger. The cannon fire lights up the night. Tracers arc into the bomber's fuselage. The Wellington shudders. Banks hard right, too late. A second burst. The Wellington's right engine explodes. The bomber rolls inverted and plunges into the darkness below. Becker and Staub have just made history. The first night fighter kill, using airborne radar. "Pawk," Becker radios to ground control. The attack call, target destroyed. Below, Wellington T-2625 GRB crashes near Bunda, all crew killed. This is what changes everything. For centuries, night meant safety, darkness provided cover, armies camped, navies anchored, aircraft returned to base. But in 1941, the RAF began bombing Germany at night. Hundreds of bombers. streaming toward German cities under cover of darkness. The Luftwaffe responded with searchlights. Massive 150-centimeter carbon arc lamps powered by dedicated generators. Their beams could illuminate aircraft at 20,000 feet. It wasn't enough. They added sound detectors, giant directional microphones on rotating platforms, operators with headphones tracking engine noise. Still not enough. Fighters flew standing patrols guided by ground controllers listening for bomber formations. They followed searchlight beams, hoping to find a target coned by the lights. Hit or miss? Mostly miss. Then came the Würzburg, a ground-based fire control radar, 3-meter dish antenna on a rotating platform. It could track a single aircraft with uncanny precision, feeding bearing, elevation, and range to flak batteries and fighter controllers. Better, but still not decisive. What night fighters needed was their own eyes. Radar that could see in the dark, Telefunken delivered. The Lichtenstein Fu-G202 operated at 490 MHz, maximum range 6 kilometers, minimum range 200 meters. The gap between I can see you and I can shoot you measured in seconds. By early 1942, production ramped up. Messerschmitt Bf 110G4 night fighters rolled off assembly lines with Lichtenstein units installed. The Junkers Ju-88 received the system, even some Dornier Do 217s. The system worked through clouds, through weather that made visual interception impossible, through conditions that grounded searchlights and optical systems. German night fighter crews developed tactics. The Himmelbett, 4-poster bed system, divided German airspace into boxes. Each box got a Würzburg radar, searchlights, and assigned fighters. Ground controllers vectored fighters toward incoming raids. Once close enough, crews switched to their onboard Lichtenstein and completed the intercept. The radar operator became as important as the pilot, usually a senior NCO, trained for months on the equipment. He called the ranges, bearings, and elevations. The pilot flew based on his directions, 2 men working as one. The attacks came from behind and below, the bomber's blind spot. Most Allied bombers had limited or no ventral defensive armament. German crews would position themselves 30 meters below and 50 meters behind. Then they'd walk cannon fire up through the bomber's belly into the wing roots, the fuel tanks. Many bombers never knew what hit them, just sudden cannon fire from the darkness below, engines exploding, wings shearing off, the long, tumbling fall to earth. By July 1943, German night fighters achieved a 5% success rate. That sounds low. 1 bomber in 20, but consider the math. An RAF raid might dispatch 500 bombers. 5% means 25 bombers destroyed. 200 men dead or captured every single night. The psychological impact was worse than the casualties. RAF crews never knew if tonight was their night. They couldn't see the fighters, couldn't predict the attacks, just had to fly into Germany, bomb the target, and pray they made it home. The randomness was terrifying. Some crews completed 30 missions without ever seeing a German fighter. Others got killed on their first mission. No pattern, no logic, just the statistics grinding away. Flight Sergeant David Wells, rear gunner on Lancaster View Victor, described it in his diary. We watch the horizon behind us, see a bomber catch fire, can't tell which squadron, watch it spiral down, count parachutes, never enough, then we fly on, wonder if we're next. The night fighter aces became legendary. Heinz Wolfgang Schnaufer, 121 confirmed kills, all at night. Helmut Lent, 110 kills, awarded the Knight's Cross with oak leaves, swords, and diamonds. Heinrich Prinz zu sein Wittgenstein, 83 kills before being shot down himself in January 1944. These weren't dogfighters, they were hunters, patient, methodical, guided by radar to their prey, then executing with ruthless efficiency. The British called them the cat-eyed devils. German propaganda called them the Lords of the Night. Both were right. The system reached its peak in late 1943 and early 1944. By then, the Luftwaffe had refined everything. Better radars, better tactics, more experienced crews, ground control centers processing data from dozens of radar stations simultaneously. The Battle of Berlin, November 1943 to March 1944. The RAF's all-out assault on the German capital. 19 major raids, over 9,000 bomber sorties. The German night fighters slaughtered them. On the night of February 19, 1944, Oberfeldwebel Heinz Winke of NJG-1 shot down 5 bombers. 5 kills in one night. His Bf-110G4's Lichtenstein radar guiding him from target to target with mechanical precision. On March 24th, the RAF sent 811 bombers to Berlin. 72 failed to return, the highest loss total of the whole campaign. Many fell to flak, but the night fighters claimed at least 50. Squadron leader John Chatterton flew a Lancaster through the defenses that night. He watched aircraft exploding around him. The flak over Berlin was particularly vicious. But it was the night fighters that were the real killers. You couldn't see them, couldn't fight them. They just appeared in the darkness and opened fire. Post-war analysis showed that between January and February 1944, German night fighters and radar-directed defenses accounted for 210 of 494 RAF bombers lost over Germany, 42%. The Germans had perfected night fighting. Then the RAF broke it, July 24, 1944, 23:37 hours Hamburg, Würzburg radar station. Unteroffizier Klaus Weber stares at his radar screen. The display shows exactly what it should. Scattered returns from the approaching RAF bomber stream, individual aircraft, clear targets for the night fighters. He's been tracking them for 20 minutes, feeding positions to the fighter control center, watching the blips representing German night fighters converge on the bombers. Then everything changes. The screen erupts with returns. Hundreds of them, thousands, the entire display fills with bright points of light so dense they merge into a glowing mass. Sector Command, this is Station 12, Weber says into his headset, keeping his voice steady. I have a malfunction. Request backup confirmation. Station 12, Sector Command, we confirm. All stations reporting same phenomenon. Stand by. But they don't stand by. Every Würzburg radar across the network displays the same impossible picture. The sky is full of targets. Too many to count. Too many to track. Weber stares at his screen. Later, in his after-action report, he'll describe it as an indecipherable jumble of echo points resembling giant insects, from which nothing could be recognized at all. What Weber is witnessing is window. Millions of strips of aluminum foil, each cut to exactly half the wavelength of German radar frequencies. The British have been dropping them in bundles of 2,000 from their bombers. Each bundle creates dozens of radar returns. Hundreds of bombers dropping window creates a metallic cloud that blinds every radar in the German air defense network. The effect is catastrophic. At a searchlight battery outside Hamburg, Maria Schneider, one of the Luftwaffe's Blitzmädchen female auxiliaries, sweeps her 150-centimeter light across the sky in increasingly desperate arcs. Her director has given her a bearing based on radar data. But when her beam reaches that point, there's nothing there, just empty sky. She sweeps left, right, up, down. Finally catches a bomber for just a moment before it slips away into darkness. She tries to track it, loses it immediately. The bomber is corkscrewing, throwing itself through violent evasive maneuvers. Another searchlight crew catches it, then loses it. The bomber escapes. All across Hamburg's defense network, searchlights wander aimlessly. The coordination system has collapsed. The radar data directing searchlights to targets is useless. Every direction shows targets, which means no direction is reliable. At his Bf-110G4, Hauptmann Martin Drews faces an impossible choice. His Lichtenstein radar screen shows the same jumbled mess as the ground stations. He can hear the bombers, the deep throb of Merlin engines, hundreds of them, somewhere up there in the darkness. But his radar can't find them. He flies blind patterns, hoping to stumble across a target. Nothing. Ground control is no help. They're as blind as he is. Drews is one of the top aces in the Nachtjagdgeschwader. 52 kills. Expert in radar intercepts, veteran of 3 years of night combat. Tonight he's helpless. Of 791 RAF bombers dispatched against Hamburg that night, exactly 12 failed to return. 1.5% losses. For comparison, losses on recent Hamburg raids averaged 4 to 6%. Tonight, facing the same defenses with window, the loss rate drops by 2/3. The bombs fall on Hamburg with devastating accuracy. 1,500 civilians die. 200,000 lose their homes. And the Luftwaffe's vaunted air defense system barely scratches the attackers. The British had known about window for 2 years. They called it their secret weapon, but were terrified to use it. The fear, if they used window, the Germans would immediately copy it and use it against British radar defenses. The technique was too simple. Just aluminum foil cut to specific lengths. Any nation could reproduce it overnight. So window sat on the shelf while RAF bombers burned over Germany. Finally, in July 1943, Bomber Command's losses became unsustainable. The decision was made. Use window. Accept the risk. The gamble paid off. German air defenses built around radar coordination collapsed. For several crucial weeks, German night fighters were almost useless. The Lichtenstein BC radar, operating at 490 MHz, saw nothing but false returns. Luftwaffe commanders scrambled to respond. Field Marshal Erhard Milch convened emergency meetings. Engineers worked around the clock. The bitter irony, Germany had tested their own version of window, they called it Duple, in trials over the Baltic Sea in winter 1942. The tests proved it would badly affect ground-based radar. Engineers warned Milch directly about the vulnerability. But the Luftwaffe kept the trials absolutely secret. They prohibited work on countermeasures for fear of alerting the Allies to the technique. Now the Allies had discovered it independently, and the Germans had no defenses ready. But German engineers were good, very good. By late 1943, they had a solution, the Lichtenstein SN2. Instead of operating in the UHF band like the BC system, the SN2 used VHF frequencies between 73 and 90 MHz, much longer wavelength. Window cut for the old radar was too short to affect the new system. The antenna changed too. Gone was the complex 32-dipole Matratze array. The new Hirschgeweih, stag's antlers, used 8 dipoles in a cleaner, more aerodynamic arrangement. Range increased to 6 kilometers. Power output doubled to 2 kilowatts. The SN2 restored German night fighter effectiveness almost overnight. By November 1943, when the Battle of Berlin began, German crews were equipped with the new system and scoring heavily again. Hauptmann Prince Heinrich zu Sein-Wittgenstein shot down 5 bombers on the night of November 25-26, 1943, all guided by SN2 radar. Oberfeldwebel Heinz Winke claimed 5 on February 19-20, 1944. The brief window of safety window had provided was closing. RAF losses climbed back toward unsustainable levels. Something had to be done. The answer came from radar intelligence. British scientists studied German radio emissions, analyzed captured equipment, worked to understand the new frequency bands. But they needed a working example, complete documentation, technical specifications. They got it on July 13, 1944. The Ju-88G1 from 7 Staffel NJG-2 was supposed to land at its home base in the Netherlands. Instead, the crew followed the wrong beacon and landed at RAF Woodbridge. By the time they realized the mistake, it was too late to destroy the equipment. The British couldn't believe their luck. They had a complete operational Lichtenstein SN2 system. Plus the Flensburg passive receiver, the device that tracked RAF Monica tail warning radars, turning British defensive systems into homing beacons for German fighters. Within weeks, British scientists had mapped every frequency the SN2 used. Engineers developed jammers. RAF bombers received orders to turn off Monica systems immediately. German night fighter effectiveness began dropping. More importantly, the RAF deployed Mosquito night fighters equipped with Serat, a detector that could track Lichtenstein radar emissions. Now Allied night fighters could hunt German night fighters by their own radar signals. The hunters became the hunted. Major Martin Drews survived until February 1945 when he was shot down by a British Mosquito. He bailed out safely, but his days of racking up kills were over. The war was clearly lost. Many of the great aces weren't so lucky. Oberfeldwebel Heinz Winke, shot down by RAF Typhoons during a daylight test flight February 26, 1944. Hauptmann Hans-Heinz Augenstein, killed by a Mosquito night fighter December 6, 1944. Hauptmann Heinz Struning, shot down by a number 157 Squadron Mosquito on Christmas Eve 1944. One by one, the lords of the night fell. By early 1945, fuel shortages meant German night fighters couldn't train new crews or operate effectively. The sophisticated radar system still worked, but there was barely enough aviation fuel to get airborne. The weapon that had terrorized RAF Bomber Command for 3 years was effectively finished. But while German night fighters were being ground down over Europe on the other side of the world, a completely different night bombing challenge was emerging. January 12, 1945. Guam Vanuatu Bomber Command Briefing Room. Major General Curtis LeMay stands at the front staring at the mission board. Behind him, 300 B-29 crews wait for the briefing to begin. LeMay doesn't look at them. He's looking at the weather report. 10/10 cloud cover over Tokyo, expected to persist for 72 hours. Jet stream winds at 30,000 feet, 180 miles per hour. Surface temperature, freezing. He's been trying to bomb Japan with precision for 2 months. The results are abysmal. The Nakajima aircraft plant in Tokyo has been hit 5 times. It's still standing, barely touched. This isn't Europe. The problems are different. In Europe, B-17s and B-24s could bomb from 25,000 feet in relatively stable conditions. Cloud cover was an issue, yes, but not like this. Over Japan at bombing altitude, B-29s encounter the jet stream, a river of air flowing at speeds that make accurate bombing impossible. Lieutenant Ed Hyatt, a B-29 pilot, encountered it on his first mission. His bombardier was trying to line up the target through the Norden bomb site. The telescope wouldn't track properly. The radar operator checked ground speed, 480 miles per hour. They should have been doing 340. Impossible winds. Nobody had warned them. Nobody knew. The bombardier dropped the bombs anyway. They landed 12 miles past the target. 12 miles. At debriefing, intelligence officers accused Hyatt's crew of lying. There's no such thing as a 140-mile-an-hour wind. You didn't make it to the target. But they had. They'd discovered the jet stream the hard way, and it made precision bombing nearly impossible. Then there's the weather. February 1945. Staff meteorologists on Guam deliver their report. LeMay can expect 7 days in March with skies clear enough for visual bombing, 6 days in April and May, 4 in June. How do you mount a sustained air campaign when you can only bomb 6 or 7 days per month? The British faced similar problems over Germany. They solved it by switching to area bombing at night. Just burn the cities. Don't worry about precision. LeMay tried that in March 1945, the firebombing of Tokyo. Low-altitude night attacks with incendiaries. Over 300 B-29s. stripped of defensive armament to carry maximum bomb loads. Flying at 5,000 feet, it worked. Devastatingly, 100,000 dead in a single night. 16 square miles of Tokyo burned to ash. LeMay repeated the tactic against Osaka, Kobe, Nagoya. City after city, the urban areas burned. But some targets couldn't be hit that way. Oil refineries, critical to Japan's war effort. Precision structures that needed direct hits with high explosive bombs, not area saturation with incendiaries. Transportation hubs, docks, bridges, aircraft factories still producing fighters. These targets required precision. And precision required either perfect, weather, rare, or daylight attacks against heavy defenses, costly. LeMay needed a third option, a way to bomb precisely at night through any weather, independent of clouds, jet streams, or visual conditions. The technology existed. It was being installed in B-29s at Bell Aircraft's plant in Marietta, Georgia, at that very moment. The APQ-7 Eagle radar. The Japanese night defenses were primitive compared to Germany's. No integrated radar network, no sophisticated ground control, no airborne radar on fighters, some searchlights, some flak. A handful of night fighters that relied on visual identification. The B-29 crews flying the March 9-10 firebombing missions encountered minimal resistance. Japanese fighters made a few ramming attempts, suicide attacks, but were largely ineffective. The problem wasn't the defenses, the problem was hitting specific targets through weather that obscured everything. Japan's industrial targets weren't spread across cities like Germany's. They were concentrated, compact. A refinery might cover only a few acres. Miss by a mile and you've accomplished nothing. The Norden bomb site, the technological marvel that was supposed to revolutionize precision bombing, was useless in clouds. It required visual identification of the target, a clear line of sight. Over Japan, that happened maybe one mission in 4. The British H-2S and American H-2X radars helped with navigation. They could map coastlines, identify cities, but their resolution was too poor for precision targeting. You could find Tokyo. You couldn't find a specific building in Tokyo. What was needed was radar with resolution good enough to distinguish individual structures. Radar that could create an image detailed enough for a bombardier to identify a target and put bombs on it. MIT's radiation laboratory had been working on exactly that since 1941. By 1944, they had a working prototype. By early 1945, production units were rolling off assembly lines. The APQ-7 Eagle, the most advanced airborne radar system in the world. Cambridge, Massachusetts, MIT Radiation Laboratory, April 1943. Dr. Luis Alvarez stands in front of a wooden mock-up, explaining his vision to a room full of military brass. Gentlemen, current radar systems show you a city, a blob on the screen representing square miles of urban area. H-2X is an improvement. You can distinguish neighborhoods, but you still can't hit a specific factory. You can't identify a bridge. You can't pick out a dock from the waterfront. He gestures to technical drawings on the wall. The Eagle will change that. Resolution high enough to identify individual buildings, individual city blocks. You'll be able to bomb a specific target in complete darkness, through 10/10ths cloud cover with accuracy approaching visual bombing. An Air Force colonel interrupts. How? Wavelength, antenna design, and a lot of very complex mathematics. The Eagle operates at 3.22 centimeters wavelength, X-band, much shorter than previous airborne radars. Shorter wavelength means higher resolution, finer detail, the ability to distinguish objects closer together. But shorter wavelength creates problems. The antenna needs to be much larger to achieve useful range. H-2X used a dish antenna in a retractable radome, compact, relatively easy to install. Eagle's antenna is 16 feet long, shaped like an aircraft wing, contains 250 individual dipole elements along the leading edge, fed by a waveguide with adjustable width. It can't fit inside the fuselage. It has to hang beneath the aircraft between the bomb bays. And it can only fit on the largest bomber in the American inventory, the B-29 Superfortress. The beam pattern is revolutionary. Instead of a rotating dish that scans in a circle, Eagle uses a fan-shaped beam extending 60 degrees forward. The beam is electronically scanned left and right by adjusting the waveguide width. No moving parts, faster scanning, more reliable. Maximum range, 160 miles. You can see the coastline of Japan from far out over the Pacific. Minimum range, close enough to bomb accurately from medium altitude. Resolution. Individual buildings appear as distinct returns on the display. A trained operator can identify a refinery, distinguish it from surrounding structures, and guide the bombardier to the exact aiming point. It sounds impossible. Many engineers said it was, but Alvarez and his team made it work. The engineering challenges were immense. The system required 1,213 separate components. Each had to be manufactured to exact tolerances. Many required hand assembly. Western Electric took over production. They set up an assembly facility in a dilapidated building on 42nd Street in New York City. Hardly the image of advanced military production. Parts came from manufacturers nationwide, shipped to New York, assembled by workers who'd been trained for weeks on the complex procedures. The first 5 sets were assembled at Bell Labs in July 1944. Another 33 were completed by August. Then production accelerated. By late 1944, Eagle units were being installed in B-17s and B-24s for use in Europe. They arrived too late. The war in Europe was winding down. The sets were redirected to the Pacific. But Eagle couldn't just be bolted onto a B-29 and called operational. The radar needed to interface with the Norden bomb site. The bombardier needed to see the radar display. The autopilot needed to receive inputs from both systems. MIT engineers developed the APQ-7 Nosmo adapter. It synchronized the Eagle radar with the Norden bomb site continuously during the bomb run. The radar operator could track the target on his screen during the entire approach. If conditions were favorable, the bombardier could switch to visual at the last moment for maximum accuracy. If clouds obscured the target completely, the entire bomb run could be conducted by radar alone. The complete system, Eagle plus Nosmo, became the APQ-7A. It was the most sophisticated, was the most bombing system ever created, and it needed a special aircraft to carry it. Bell Aircraft's plant in Marietta, Georgia. Winter 1945. The B-29B rolls off the assembly line looking distinctly different from standard superfortresses. No upper gun turrets, no lower turret, no side gun positions, just a tail turret with twin 50 caliber machine guns and a single 20mm cannon. The weight savings are substantial. 3,000 pounds of guns and fire control systems removed. That weight goes into bombs and fuel. The B-29B can fly higher, faster, and farther than standard variants. It can carry 16,000 pounds of bombs compared to 12,000 for a typical loadout. But it's nearly defenseless against fighter attack. The tail guns are the only weapons. This is an aircraft designed for one mission profile, night precision bombing against minimal fighter opposition. 2 radar systems are installed, the APQ-7 Eagle for bombing and navigation. Its 16-foot wing antenna hangs beneath the fuselage, giving the aircraft a distinctive biplane appearance. And the APQ-15B for tail defense. A radar-directed automatic fire control system. The tail gunner can track and engage fighters in complete darkness using radar guidance. It doesn't always work. The system is finicky, prone to malfunctions in the tropical environment. But when it works, it's devastating. A fighter approaching from behind can be detected and engaged before the pilot even sees the B-29. The crew is smaller, 7 or 8 instead of 11. The radar operator moves from the rear compartment to the front right behind the navigator. No waist gunners, no central fire control gunner. Just pilot, co-pilot, bombardier, navigator, flight engineer, radio operator, radar operator, and tail gunner. Every man has a critical job. No redundancy, no backup. By February 1945, Bell is producing complete B-29Bs at a steady rate. The early aircraft had been sent to Oklahoma City Air Depot without electronics. The equipment was installed there. Now the aircraft roll out fully equipped and ready for combat. Their destination, Northwest Field, Guam. Their unit, the 315th Bombardment Wing. Their mission, destroy Japan's petroleum industry using precision night radar bombing. Peterson Field, Colorado, July 1944. The 315th Bombardment Wing activates with 4 groups, the 16th, 331st, 501st, and 502nd. From the beginning, this is a specialist unit. Every crew member is hand-picked. Training focuses entirely on radar bombing. The B-29Bs haven't arrived yet. Crews train on B-24 Liberators fitted with Eagle radar, learning the systems, practicing radar approaches, simulated bomb runs over the Colorado plains. The radar operators receive the most intensive training. They need to interpret radar returns, distinguish targets from clutter, guide the bombardier through the entire bomb run. It's harder than it sounds. A radar screen shows shadows, reflections. Returns that could be buildings, could be terrain features, could be weather. Experience helps. Pattern recognition. Knowing what an oil refinery looks like on radar versus a warehouse district versus open water. The operators study reconnaissance photos, memorize target layouts, practice on radar images until they can identify targets in seconds. By March 1945, the wing is ready. The aircraft arrive, brand new B-29Bs with that distinctive Eagle antenna slung beneath the fuselage. The ground crews stare. They've never seen anything like it. The wing deploys overseas in stages. The 16th and 501st Bombardment Groups arrive at Northwest Field, Guam in mid-April 1945. The 331st and 502nd follow in mid-May. Northwest Field is rough. Coral runways, Quonset huts for maintenance, tents for many of the crews. The heat is brutal, the humidity oppressive. But the runway is 8,500 feet long enough for fully loaded B-29s. And it's within striking distance of Japan. The crews fly shakedown missions against bypassed Japanese bases in the Carolines, Moen Island, Truk, Rota, building experience, testing the systems. The Eagle radars work beautifully, better than expected. The APQ-7 tail defense systems are problematic, frequent malfunctions. The tropical environment plays havoc with the electronics. Technicians work around the clock trying to fix the issues. Dr. Vance J. Hold'em from MIT flies out to Guam to troubleshoot. He finds that humidity is degrading the rubber coating on the Eagle wing antenna. Fixes are implemented. By June, the wing is ready for combat. Brigadier General Frank Armstrong, wing commander, calls his group commanders together. "Gentlemen," he says, "the 315th Bomb Wing is making history today. If this mission is successful, this raid will revolutionize aerial bombardment." The date is June 26, 1945. The target, Utsube Oil Refinery at Yokkaichi. The mission, precision night radar bombing through complete cloud cover. The pre-mission briefing uses the 315th's special illuminated briefing technique. Maps projected on screens, routes traced in light. Weather overlays showing the expected cloud cover, 10/10ths. Complete, not a gap anywhere. Perfect conditions for the 315th. Their Eagle radars will penetrate the clouds easily. Japanese defenses will be blind. The mission profile is carefully designed. Takeoff during daylight, long overwater flight to Japan. Arrive at target after dark. Bomb individually, no formation flying at night. Return before dawn. Land in daylight. Altitude 15,000 to 16,000 feet, medium altitude. High enough to avoid most light flak. Low enough for maximum radar resolution. The bomb run will be 28 miles long. The radar operator will acquire the target early, track it continuously, feeding corrections to the bombardier. When they reach the release point, bombs away. Colonel John Gurney, commander of the 16th Bombardment Group, will lead the mission personally. His crew is experienced. His radar operator is one of the best. At 1600 hours, the first B-29B starts engines. The props turn. The Wright R-3350 engines roar to life. One by one, the bombers taxi to the runway. Gurney's aircraft, Fluffy Fuzz 3, leads the takeoff. Behind him, another B-29B named Fleet Admiral Nimitz rolls into position. The takeoffs are staggered. Individual aircraft. No formation, each crew on their own timeline. By 1800 hours, 38 B-29Bs are airborne, heading northwest toward Japan. June 26-27, 1945, 2300 hours, approaching Japanese coast. Inside Gurney's B-29B, the radar operator powers up the Eagle system. His screen comes to life. Green phosphorescent glow. The fan-shaped beam scanning ahead. At 120 miles out, the Japanese coastline appears. A clear line separating water from land. The radar image is remarkably detailed. He can see the contours of the coast, the shape of the bay. Navigator, radar, I have the coast, right on track. The navigator confirms. They're exactly where they should be. At 60 miles, the radar operator starts looking for the target. The Utsube oil refinery sits on the coast at Yokkaichi. Should be distinctive. Large structures near water. 40 miles. He adjusts the scan angle, narrows the beam. There, a cluster of returns. Large rectangular structures, storage tanks, the refinery. Bombardier, radar, target acquired, bearing 035, range 38 miles. The bombardier acknowledges, begins his calculations on the Norden. The clouds below are solid, 10/10, just as briefed. Through the cockpit windows, Gurney can see nothing but darkness and the dim glow of moonlight on cloud tops. But the radar sees everything. The operator calls out corrections. Left 2 degrees, steady, range 25 miles. The autopilot makes tiny adjustments based on the radar inputs. The Nosmo system synchronizes the Norden with the Eagle, feeding target data continuously. At 10 miles, anti-aircraft fire begins. Sporadic. A few searchlights probe the clouds below, but they can't penetrate to reach the bombers at 15,500 feet. One searchlight catches a B-29 briefly. The bomber takes evasive action and disappears back into the clouds. The Japanese can hear the engines. They know bombers are overhead, but they can't see them, can't track them. The flak is blind firing, hoping to get lucky. Gurney's bomber flies straight and level. No evasive action. The bomb run requires stability. IP in 30 seconds, the radar operator calls. The initial point, the start of the final bombing approach. The bombardier's hand moves to the bomb release switch. Bomb bay doors open. The bay doors pneumatically snap open in less than a second. The new fast-acting system, no 7-second wait. On target, steady. The clouds below are impenetrable. Gurney can see nothing. He's flying entirely on instruments, trusting his radar operator, trusting the system. Bombs away! 14 500-pound general-purpose bombs tumble from the bay. The B-29B leaps upward, suddenly 3.5 tons, lighter. The bombardier watches his intervalometer. The bombs fall in a train, spacing calculated to cover the target area. Nobody sees them impact. The clouds hide everything. But the radar operator sees the returns change. Secondary explosions, the signature of hits on fuel storage. Explosions at target, he reports. Gurney banks away, heading for the coast and the long flight home. Behind him, 30 more B-29Bs make their bomb runs, individual attacks, spaced minutes apart, each crew using their Eagle radar to find the target, track it, bomb it. The Japanese defenders fire blindly into the sky. Searchlights sweep uselessly across the cloud layers. A few fighters take off, but in the darkness and clouds they find nothing. One B-29B reports a hole in the bomb bay door, possibly flak. Minor damage, no aircraft lost. By 0400 hours, all B-29Bs are back over the Pacific. Fuel reserves are good. No fighters encountered over open water. The crews land at Guam in daylight, as planned. Safe. The first mission of the 315th Bombardment Wing is complete. Later that morning, photo reconnaissance aircraft attempt to assess the damage. Weather prevents clear images. The clouds that protected the bombers also hide the results, but crew reports are consistent. Fires at the target, explosions, good radar tracking throughout. Intelligence officers are cautiously optimistic. The real proof will come in subsequent missions. Can the 315th repeat this success? Can Eagle radar truly deliver precision bombing through weather? 3 days later, they try again. June 29-30, 1945. Target Nippon Oil Company refinery at Kutamatsu. 33 B-29Bs participate. Weather over target 8 to 10/10 cloud cover. Perfect Eagle conditions. All bombing is by radar. The crews never see the target visually. They don't need to. Results: 209 tons of bombs on target. Flak is meager and inaccurate. Several searchlights observed but ineffective. No enemy aircraft sighted. 0 aircraft lost. July 2003, Maruzen Oil Refinery at Minashima. 39 B-29Bs, complete cloud cover. Radar bombing, 0 losses. July 6-7, Maruzen Oil Refinery at Shimotsu near Osaka. This is the crown jewel mission. 60 B-29Bs dispatched. 59 bomb the primary target. 1 hits an opportunity target. Weather 10/10 cloud cover. Total darkness. Everything by radar. 58 aircraft bombed by radar alone. 1 bombardier gets a visual break in the clouds at the last second and drops visually. Results: photo reconnaissance 11 days later reveals 95% of the plant destroyed. 95% from a night radar bombing mission through complete cloud cover. It's unprecedented. 1 bomber receives minor damage from a 20mm shell fired by a Japanese fighter. The fighter made 2 ramming attempts, suicide attacks, but missed. 0 aircraft lost. The pattern continues through July. July 9-10, back to Utsube Oil Refinery at Yokkaichi to complete its destruction. 64 B-29Bs. Clear weather this time. 10 crews get visual confirmation of targets. Photo reconnaissance shows 20% additional damage. The refinery is finished. Mission after mission. Oil refineries across Japan. Nippon Oil, Maruzen, Mitsubishi. 1 by 1 systematically destroyed. The 315th develops a rhythm. Fly to target, bomb by radar, return safely. The mission profiles are nearly identical. Takeoff late afternoon. Arrive at target after dark. Bomb between 2300 hours and 0300 hours. Return before dawn. Land in daylight. Altitude, consistently 15,000 to 16,000 feet. High enough to avoid light flak. Low enough for maximum radar resolution. Individual aircraft tactics. No formations. Each crew finds and bombs the target independently. The Japanese defenses are ineffective. Searchlights sweep the sky but rarely illuminate a bomber. When they do, the B-29B simply maneuvers back into clouds. Flak is usually described as nil to meager, or meager and inaccurate. The guns are firing blind, hoping for lucky hits. Fighters occasionally attempt intercepts. The reports mention ramming attempts, kamikaze attacks. But the fighters can't find the bombers in the darkness and clouds. The APQ-15B radar-directed tail guns work when they work. Some crews report successful engagements. Others report system failures. The equipment remains temperamental, but it doesn't matter. Fighter opposition is so light that even without working tail defenses, the B-29Bs are relatively safe. What matters is the bombing accuracy. The Eagle radar delivers on its promise. 30% of bombs fall within a 2,000-foot radius of the aiming point. For radar bombing through complete cloud cover, this is extraordinary. Compare that to H-2X, the earlier radar system. Best case accuracy, 50% of bombs within a mile of the target. And that's in good conditions. Eagle is 3 times more accurate. The results speak for themselves. By early August, Japan's petroleum industry is shattered. The refineries that were supposed to fuel fighters, bombers, and the fleet are burning ruins. Reconnaissance photos show the devastation. Entire refinery complexes destroyed, storage tanks collapsed, processing equipment twisted wreckage. The 315th Bombardment Wing has flown 15 combat missions, attacked 9 different oil facilities, completely destroyed 6 of them, heavily damaged the other 3. Total losses, 4 B-29Bs, 4 aircraft out of hundreds of sorties, a loss rate so low it's almost negligible. August 1st, 1945, the 331st and 502nd Bombardment Groups finally joined combat operations. They've been at Guam for months, training, waiting for their turn. Target: Mitsubishi Havana Oil Refinery in Kawasaki. Both groups perform well. The mission is successful. The refinery burns. The 315th is now operating at full strength. All 4 groups. Over 100 B-29Bs available for operations. Plans are being made for expanded missions. More targets. Higher sortie rates. The systematic destruction of every remaining oil facility in Japan. But time is running out. August 6th. Enola Gay drops the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. The crew flies a B-29 but not a B-29B, a specially modified aircraft. The 315th isn't involved. August 9th, Boxcar drops the second atomic bomb on Nagasaki. Again, not a 315th aircraft. But on the night of August 14th, 15, the 315th flies one more mission. August 14th, 1945, 1800 hours, Northwest Field, Guam. The briefing is routine now. The crews know the drill. Another oil facility, another night precision radar attack. Nobody knows this will be the last mission of World War II. The B-29Bs take off into the afternoon sun. Standard procedure, individual departures, heading north-northwest toward Japan. The target is an oil storage facility, not a refinery this time. Just storage tanks and distribution infrastructure. But every drop of fuel matters. Destroy the storage and you've cut the supply line. The flight is long, 8 hours to target. The crews settle into the routine. Navigator checks position. Flight engineer monitors engines. Radar operator tests his equipment. As they approach Japan, the usual preparations begin. Radar operator powers up the Eagle. Bombardier readies the Norden. Tail gunner checks his ammunition. The weather is mixed. Some clouds, some clear areas. Not ideal Eagle conditions, but workable. At Oro 300 hours, the first 315th bombers begin their runs. Radar tracking. Bomb bay doors open, bombs away. The last bomber to attack releases its weapons at Oro 339 hours, August 15th, 1945. Those bombs, falling through the darkness toward an oil storage facility somewhere in Japan, are the last American bombs dropped in World War II. The crew doesn't know it. They're flying home, monitoring fuel, watching for fighters that never come. It's Captain Dan Trask's crew from the 502nd Bombardment Group. Their aircraft is named the Uninvited. They were the last to take off. They'll be the last to land. 16 hours and 45 minutes of flight time. During the return flight, radio operators start picking up broadcasts. Something about Japan surrendering. Static makes it hard to hear clearly. Can't be right. They just bombed Japan. The war is still on. But the broadcasts continue. More stations, more reports. At 0800 hours clear transmission, President Truman has announced the unconditional surrender of Japan. The war is over. The crews can hardly process it. They've just flown a combat mission, dropped bombs. The Japanese were still shooting at them hours ago, and now it's over. The uninvited lands at Guam at 10:30 hours. The ground crew swarms the aircraft. Photographers are waiting, reporters. Last plane over the Empire during the war, someone shouts. Trask's crew climbs out, exhausted, confused, relieved. They've survived. The war is over. Behind them, the rest of the 315th bombers land one by one. All aircraft accounted for. No losses. Mission 15. Complete. Photo reconnaissance will later confirm the results. Almost completely destroyed or damaged. No portion of the target untouched. Perfect to the end. The 315th Bombardment Wing flew combat operations for exactly 6 weeks. June 26 to August 14, 1945, 15 missions, 9 oil targets, 6 completely destroyed, 3 heavily damaged, 4 B-29Bs lost. 0 losses on the final 5 missions. It's one of the most successful bombing campaigns in aviation history, and one of the shortest. The Eagle radar system proved everything its designers claimed. It could bomb through weather. It could hit precision targets at night. It could do what the Norden bomb sight couldn't, deliver accuracy regardless of visibility. But it arrived late, too late for Europe, just barely in time for the Pacific, and that raises questions. What if Eagle had been ready in 1944? Production units started arriving in late 1944. A small number were fitted to B-17s and B-24s intended for Europe. None arrived in time to see combat before Germany surrendered. But imagine if they had. Imagine Eagle-equipped bombers over the Ruhr in 1944, attacking synthetic oil plants through the cloud cover that so often protected them. Hitting railway marshalling yards with precision at night. The 8th Air Force could have conducted round-the-clock operations. Precision attacks by day, precision attacks by night with Eagle radar. Germany's economy was already crumbling under the bombing campaign. Eagle might have accelerated the collapse by months. But there's a bigger question. What if Germany's night fighters had faced Eagle-equipped bombers? The Lichtenstein SN2 radar operated in the 7390 MHz range, VHF band. Its success came from being immune to window chaff and difficult for the Allies to jam. The Eagle radar operated at 10 GHz, X-band, a completely different frequency spectrum. Germany had no radar detectors that could track X-band emissions. Flensburg tracked RAF Monica sets in the VHF range. Naxos tracked H2S radar in the S-band. Both were useless against Eagle. German night fighters relied on detecting bomber radar emissions, using those emissions to guide to their targets. Allied countermeasures like Sarit worked the same way, tracking German radar emissions. Against Eagle, those tactics wouldn't work. The German night fighters would be hunting blind, their sophisticated radar systems tuned to the wrong frequencies, their passive detectors seeing nothing. Meanwhile, Eagle-equipped bombers would be attacking with precision through any weather, any darkness, any cloud cover. The greatest night fighter force in history would have been rendered obsolete by technology. It never happened. The German night fighter force peaked in late 1943 and early 1944. By the time Eagle reached operational status, the Luftwaffe was crippled by fuel shortages, pilot losses, and the breakdown of the integrated air defense network. The 315th Bombardment Wing operated against Japan, where night fighter opposition was minimal. A handful of kamikaze attacks, some searchlights, blind flak fire. The sophisticated German system, Freya early warning, Würzburg ground control, Lichtenstein airborne radar, coordinated fighter tactics, never faced the sophisticated American answer. The weapon that could have defeated the best night fighters in the world only ever fought against the worst. There's a museum in England, the RAF Museum at Hendon. On display is a Junkers Ju-88R1 night fighter. Work number 360043, the aircraft that landed at RAF Dyson, Scotland in May 1943, flown by defecting Luftwaffe crew. It still has its original Lichtenstein BC radar, the Matratze antenna array, the cockpit displays, everything intact. You can walk around it. See the complexity, the engineering, the attention to detail. This is the aircraft that gave German night fighters their edge. That terrorized RAF bomber command that killed thousands of Allied airmen. 7,000 miles away at the Smithsonian's National Air and Space Museum sits the Enola Gay, a B-29 superfortress, not a B-29B. This one has its gun turrets. But it represents the same family of aircraft that carried Eagle radar. The display doesn't mention Eagle. Most visitors don't know about the 315th Bombardment Wing. The radar bombing campaign gets overshadowed by the atomic bombs. But the technology is there, in the documentation, in the history. These two aircraft, the Ju-88 and the B-29, represent the evolution of night warfare. One mastered hunting in darkness, the other made darkness irrelevant. They never met in combat. The Germans perfected their system by 1943, refined it in 1944, then lost it to a navigation error and a mistaken landing. The Americans perfected their system by 1945, used it for 6 weeks against minimal opposition. Then the war ended. 2 years separated their operational peaks. 2 years and 7,000 miles. The greatest night fighter force in history never faced the weapon designed to defeat it. August 15, 1945, Northwest Field, Guam. The celebration is muted. The crews are exhausted. 16-hour missions, 6 weeks of operations. The strain shows on every face. But they're alive. The war is over. They're going home. Major General Curtis LeMay visits the 315th, shakes hands, offers congratulations. "You did what nobody thought possible," he tells the assembled crews. "You proved radar bombing works. Precision at night, through any weather. That's the future of air power." He's right. The technology will evolve. Jet bombers. Better radar. Eventually, GPS-guided weapons that can hit within feet of their targets. But in 1945, for 6 weeks, the 315th Bombardment Wing wrote the manual. They took the most advanced radar system in the world and proved it could revolutionize warfare. They flew into darkness and made it disappear. And they did it all while the greatest night fighter force in history was burning its last fuel over Europe, hunting bombers with radar that couldn't see the future coming. The Germans perfected night fighting. The Americans installed radar on 500 B-29s and bombed in darkness. And the night fighters, those magnificent deadly machines that had ruled the sky, never got their chance to prove they could adapt. By the time the technology arrived that could defeat them, they were already defeated by fuel shortages, pilot losses, and the grinding mathematics of attrition. The Eagle soared over Japan, unchallenged. The lords of the night fell over Germany, never knowing what might have been. War is full of what-ifs. This is one of the biggest.